in a realm where darkness never falls, where beings of pure light dance beneath three blazing suns. A forbidden secret buried in ancient ruins will change everything. When corporate greed threatens to extinguish an eternal civilization, an unlikely alliance must rise against impossible odds. What happens when an interstellar archaeologist meets a guardian of sacred knowledge? And how far would you go to protect your world's light from those who seek to steal it? Stay until the end to discover if love can illuminate even the darkest intentions. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling sci-fi adventures. The triple suns of Orion cast their perpetual radiance across landscapes that seemed to breathe with light, creating an endless day that had shaped every aspect of life on this remarkable planet. Alexander Krauss adjusted his polarized visor, scanning the ancient stone structures that rose like jagged teeth from the crystalline sands. 20 standard years of exploring countless worlds had taught him to recognize the subtle signs of intelligent design, the precise angles of weathered stones, the mathematical perfection in seemingly random patterns, the way certain formations aligned with celestial bodies. Yet nothing in his extensive experience could have prepared him for what lay beneath these particular weathered stones. His boots crunched against the luminescent ground, each step releasing tiny bursts of stored solar energy that danced briefly before fading back into the crystalline surface. The air carried a peculiar charge, as if the very atmosphere was alive with potential energy. As he approached the central obelisk, its surface pulsing with patterns that seemed almost alive, responding to his presence with increasing intensity, Alexander felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He first noticed the presence watching him when the light patterns shifted in a way that defied natural explanation. Subtle changes in the ambient glow, movements just beyond his peripheral vision, and an inexplicable feeling of being studied by unseen eyes all combined to create an atmosphere thick with anticipation. The obelisk's surface began displaying sequences that matched no known writing system, yet somehow felt familiar, as if tapping into some deep-seated human instinct for pattern recognition. Each symbol seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, creating a complex symphony of light that resonated through the surrounding area. Alexander's instruments registered fluctuations in local energy fields, suggesting that whatever intelligence had created these structures might still be active, perhaps even aware of his presence. The realization sent a shiver down his spine. He wasn't just studying ancient ruins. He was potentially making first contact with an entirely new form of consciousness. Miranda emerged from the radiant mist like a living constellation, her form shimmering with the same bioluminescent energy that suffused every native of Orion. Her people, the Luminari, had evolved alongside the constant daylight of their triple star system, developing complex patterns of light communication that danced across their semi-translucent skin in mesmerizing displays. These patterns weren't merely decorative. They represented an entire language of emotions, thoughts, and social signals that could convey more information in a single pulse than hours of spoken dialogue. She regarded the off-worlder with cautious curiosity, her light patterns shifting through shades of amber and violet as she processed his presence. Her movements were graceful yet deliberate, each step leaving behind faint traces of photonic energy that quickly dissipated into the surrounding atmosphere. Alexander watched, fascinated, as her bioluminescence responded to changes in his posture and expression, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of body language that transcended species barriers. Miranda's traditional robes, woven from fibers that captured and refracted light in complex patterns, seemed to harmonize with the ambient radiation of their environment, creating an effect that was both beautiful and functional. The keeper's mark upon her forehead, a spiral pattern that pulsed gently with the planet's natural energy rhythms, identified her as one of the highest-ranking custodians of her people's ancient knowledge. As she stepped closer, the air between them seemed to hum with potential energy, though neither could have anticipated how this encounter would alter the course of both their lives. Her presence commanded respect not through intimidation but through an aura of profound connection to the world around her, as if she were an extension of the planet itself rather than merely an inhabitant. The corporation's mining ships descended like metal predators through Orion's upper atmosphere, their hulls reflecting the combined light of the three suns in blinding flashes that temporarily disrupted the planet's delicate energy balance. They called it energy harvesting, a sanitized term that masked the true nature of their operation, the systematic extraction of photonic essence that sustained Orion's unique ecosystem. Their promotional materials spoke of sustainable resource management and minimal environmental impact, but Alexander recognized the truth behind their carefully crafted marketing. Beneath the planet's surface lay reservoirs of pure photonic energy, ancient accumulations of solar radiation transformed through millennia of geological and biological processes into something far more sophisticated than mere light. His research had uncovered records suggesting these reserves were not merely natural formations, but carefully cultivated over countless generations by Miranda's ancestors. Each drilling operation threatened to disrupt the delicate balance that maintained the planet's eternal day, potentially plunging entire regions into darkness for the first time in recorded history. The corporation's representatives presented elaborate models showing how their technology would supposedly prevent any significant ecological damage, but Alexander knew better. Their calculations failed to account for the complex web of energy exchange that connected every living thing on Orion, reducing centuries of ecological balance to mere economic projections. The mining ships deployed their initial survey probes, their mechanical appendages digging into the crystalline surface with cold efficiency. With each sample extracted, subtle changes rippled through the surrounding environment, shifts in ambient temperature, alterations in local energy fields, and, most concerning of all, disturbances in the natural light patterns that governed luminary communication and social structure. Alexander documented these changes meticulously, knowing that the data would become crucial evidence in the coming conflict. Miranda led Alexander through hidden passages known only to the keepers of knowledge, walls of living crystal responding to her touch, with cascading waves of color that illuminated their path. These corridors weren't merely architectural features, they were living conduits of information, their crystalline structures storing and transmitting knowledge through complex patterns of refracted light. As they moved deeper into the temple complex, the air grew thick with the scent of ionized particles, and the ambient light took on a quality that seemed almost liquid, flowing around them in gentle currents. Here, in the heart of Orion's oldest temple, holographic records preserved the wisdom of countless generations, their images projected not through conventional technology, but through the natural properties of the planet's unique mineral composition. She revealed to him the true nature of their symbiosis with the planet, how each luminary served as both custodian and conduit for the photonic energy that flowed through their world. Their bioluminescence wasn't merely biological, it represented a sophisticated network of energy exchange that maintained the planet's equilibrium. Through careful manipulation of light frequencies and energy patterns, the luminary had developed techniques for directing and focusing planetary energy flows, ensuring that every region received exactly the right amount of illumination to support its specific ecosystem. Understanding dawned in Alexander's eyes as he realized the catastrophic consequences of disrupting this ancient system. The corporation's mining operations wouldn't just extract resources, they would sever vital connections in this delicate web of energy exchange, potentially triggering cascading failures throughout the entire biosphere. Each revelation from the archives added another layer of complexity to their understanding of Orion's ecosystem, transforming their mission from simple preservation to the protection of an entire planetary consciousness. Their initial encounters were marked by mutual suspicion and cultural misunderstandings that highlighted the vast gulf between their respective backgrounds. Alexander struggled to comprehend the luminary's nonlinear concept of time, which operated more like a web of interconnected moments than a straight progression from past to future. His attempts to document everything with recording devices were met with consternation, as the luminary viewed such mechanical capture of knowledge as inherently reductive and disrespectful to the living nature of information. Miranda, in turn, found his insistence on linear documentation and chronological organization perplexing, as if trying to force the free-flowing river of their collective wisdom into rigid containers. Yet necessity forged trust between them as they worked to decode the warning messages left by previous civilizations, their different perspectives proving complementary rather than contradictory. The ancient texts spoke of similar threats throughout Orion's history, periods when external forces had attempted to exploit the planet's energy reserves, each overcome through unity and sacrifice. As they spent more time together, their interactions grew less formal, their shared mission creating bonds that transcended species and cultural barriers. Alexander learned to interpret the subtle shifts in Mirianda's bioluminescent patterns, recognizing how different combinations of colors and rhythms conveyed complex emotions and ideas. In return, she adapted her communication style, using more direct patterns when explaining critical concepts and demonstrating remarkable patience with his slower grasp of their light-based language. Their collaboration became a dance of mutual discovery, each revelation about Orion's secrets bringing them closer to understanding not just the technical aspects of their challenge, but the profound philosophical implications of protecting a living world. The corporation's representatives arrived under the guise of diplomatic interest, their polished smiles and rehearsed speeches barely masking their true intentions. They set up their meeting in a grand hall of translucent crystal that amplified their every word, creating echoes that distorted meaning as much as clarified it. Their presentations featured elaborate charts and graphs that reduced centuries of ecological balance to mere economic projections, attempting to quantify the value of Orion's unique ecosystem in terms of galactic credits and shareholder returns. Dr. Evelyn Marsters, the corporation's lead negotiator, spoke of resource optimization and maximizing shareholder value, while dismissing the Luminaries' concerns as primitive superstition rooted in outdated spiritual beliefs. Her team presented computer simulations showing how their operations would supposedly maintain ecological stability, conveniently omitting key variables related to energy flow dynamics and interspecies dependencies. Alexander watched in growing anger as they manipulated data to justify their exploitation, knowing full well the devastating impact their operations would have. The meeting hall became charged with tension as Mirianda challenged their claims, her bioluminescent patterns shifting rapidly in complex sequences that rallied her people despite the interference. Her arguments drew directly from the ancient archives, presenting irrefutable evidence of how similar actions in the past had nearly destroyed entire ecosystems. The corporation's representatives responded with condescending smiles and dismissive gestures, their arrogance evident in every calculated movement. As the debate intensified, the very atmosphere seemed to respond to the conflict, with ambient light patterns flickering erratically and the crystalline walls humming with discordant frequencies. It became clear that this confrontation was about more than just economics or environmental protection. It was a fundamental clash between two radically different ways of understanding and interacting with the universe. Under cover of the brightest hour, when all three suns aligned directly overhead in their rare perfect triad formation, they began their resistance with surgical precision. Alexander's archaeological expertise proved invaluable in identifying critical points of vulnerability in the ancient energy networks, while Mirianda's intimate knowledge of her people's history provided strategic advantages that went beyond mere tactical considerations. They organized small teams of Luminari volunteers, teaching them how to use their natural abilities to interfere with the mining equipment sensors in ways that mimicked natural phenomena rather than appearing as deliberate sabotage. Each successful operation required careful coordination and split-second timing, as they had to work within narrow windows when the equipment's automated systems performed routine maintenance checks. The teams developed sophisticated patterns of light-based interference that could temporarily blind sensor arrays without triggering security protocols, buying precious seconds to plant microdisruptors that would cause controlled malfunctions in the drilling systems. Alexander contributed his technical knowledge to develop these devices, combining elements of human engineering with principles drawn from Luminari energy manipulation techniques. They established a network of observation posts staffed by both Luminari and sympathetic off-world researchers who had come to understand the true significance of Orion's ecosystem. Communication between cells relied on ancient Luminari methods enhanced with modern encryption algorithms, creating a hybrid system that proved remarkably resilient against corporate counterintelligence efforts. Each successful sabotage bought them precious time, though the cost grew higher with each confrontation as the corporation responded with increasing aggression, deploying more sophisticated detection systems and expanding their security perimeter. The resistance fighters adapted accordingly, developing new tactics and refining their approach with each operation, their determination hardening with every setback. The night, or what passed for night on Orion, when they finally stood together on the observation platform above the main energy reserve, something shifted between them in a way that transcended their professional relationship. Three suns cast their light across Mirianda's translucent form, revealing aspects of her being that went beyond physical manifestation. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the planet's heartbeat, visible only to those attuned to Orion's subtle energies. Alexander understood then that the Luminari weren't just inhabitants of their world. They were integral parts of its living consciousness, their very existence woven into the fabric of the planet's energy matrix. Their connection deepened as they discussed not just strategies for resistance, but visions for a future where different species could coexist without exploitation. They spent hours analyzing energy flow patterns, debating how to present their findings to the wider galactic community in a way that would resonate beyond scientific circles. The boundaries between professional collaboration and personal commitment blurred in the face of shared purpose, their conversations flowing seamlessly from technical discussions to philosophical musings about the nature of consciousness and responsibility. Mirianda began sharing insights from the Keeper's archives that had previously been restricted even to most Luminari, recognizing in Alexander a kindred spirit whose scientific curiosity was tempered by genuine respect for their traditions. Together, they developed new ways of documenting their discoveries, combining traditional Luminari methods of light-encoded memory with human archival systems to create a comprehensive record of their struggle and the planet's secrets. This fusion of approaches resulted in unprecedented breakthroughs in understanding Orion's energy dynamics, revelations that strengthen their case against the corporation while also opening new avenues for sustainable interaction between species. Corporate security forces moved in with military precision, their black uniformed figures stark against the radiant landscape like shadows given form. Warning shots fired harmlessly into the air, designed to intimidate rather than injure, but their psychological impact was devastating. The sharp cracks of sound weapons reverberated through the crystalline structures, their frequencies carefully calibrated to disrupt the Luminari's bioluminescent communication. Mirianda stood at the forefront of the gathering crowd, her patterns flashing in complex sequences that rallied her people despite the interference. The situation escalated dangerously as mining drones began activating, their drills threatening to pierce the sacred reservoirs below. Traditional Luminari peacekeeping methods proved ineffective against the corporation's advanced technology, forcing Alexander and Mirianda to adapt their resistance strategy in real time. They implemented emergency protocols encoded in the ancient systems, activating defensive mechanisms that had lain dormant for generations. Streams of photonic energy surged through the crystalline network, creating interference fields that temporarily disabled the corporation's equipment while protecting the surrounding ecosystem. The battle reached its peak intensity as both sides pushed their respective technologies to the limit, the air crackling with discharged energy and the ground trembling from the strain of conflicting forces. Amidst the chaos, Alexander and Mirianda coordinated their allies' movements with precise timing, exploiting moments when the corporation's security systems momentarily lost synchronization. Their leadership inspired others to join the resistance, swelling their ranks with volunteers from both Luminari and increasingly sympathetic off-world communities. Each surge forward bought precious time to implement additional protective measures, though the cost mounted with every passing minute as the corporation's forces responded with escalating aggression. In the archive's deepest chamber, accessible only through a complex sequence of light-based authentication protocols, they discovered something extraordinary that would redefine their understanding of Orion's place in the galaxy. Beyond the expected records of planetary history and energy management techniques lay maps of auroral pathways showing how energy flowed between worlds, creating a vast network that connected countless civilizations through light. These pathways weren't merely metaphorical, they represented actual channels of photonic transmission that linked Orion to other planets with similar energy characteristics. This revelation changed everything about their mission. The Luminari weren't just protecting their own planet, they were guardians of an interstellar network that maintained ecological balance across multiple systems. Alexander's academic focus shifted dramatically from mere historical documentation to understanding this cosmic web of energy exchange. Together, they developed a comprehensive plan to demonstrate the true value of preserving Orion's energy system, one that would require unprecedented cooperation between the Luminari and willing off-world allies. They began reaching out to scientists and researchers from other worlds who had studied similar phenomena, building a coalition of experts who could help communicate the significance of their discovery to the wider galactic community. The stakes had become galactic in scale, and their success would determine the fate of multiple worlds connected through this ancient network. Each new piece of information revealed layers of complexity that demanded innovative solutions, pushing them to think beyond traditional conservation methods toward a holistic approach that considered the needs of entire stellar neighborhoods. The corporation launched its final assault during the rare celestial alignment when all three suns eclipsed simultaneously, creating the first moment of true darkness Orion had experienced in recorded history. For the first time, shadows fell across the planet's surface, and the impact was immediate and terrifying. Plant-like organisms began to wither as their photosynthetic processes faltered without the constant light they depended on. Some Luminari showed signs of distress as their bioluminescence dimmed, their internal energy reserves struggling to compensate for the sudden absence of ambient radiation. A critical infrastructure that relied on constant photonic input began malfunctioning, causing cascading failures throughout the ecosystem. Alexander and Miranda worked feverishly to activate emergency protocols encoded in the ancient systems, coordinating teams of technicians who raced against time to stabilize the situation. They implemented backup energy distribution networks, redirecting stored photonic reserves to the most vulnerable areas while coordinating counterattacks against the mining operations that continued despite the crisis. The battle reached its climax as they fought not just for Orion's present but for its very survival, implementing desperate measures to restore light to critical regions before irreversible damage could occur. Their efforts became a race against time as they worked to contain the spreading darkness, knowing that each moment of shadow threatened to push the planet's delicate balance past the point of recovery. The corporation's forces pressed their advantage, attempting to exploit the chaos their actions had created, while Alexander and Miranda's coalition fought to maintain order and implement restorative measures. The corporation withdrew faced with overwhelming evidence of the interstellar implications of their actions, but the damage required immediate attention. Several key reservoirs had been compromised before they managed to shut down the mining operations, creating voids in the planet's energy grid that threatened to destabilize entire regions. Alexander and Miranda spearheaded restoration efforts, combining modern technology with ancient Luminari techniques in innovative ways. They established monitoring stations staffed by both species, creating a new model for interspecies cooperation that went beyond mere coexistence to true symbiotic partnership. Traditional Luminari healing practices were augmented with advanced terraforming equipment, allowing them to accelerate the planet's natural recovery processes while respecting its established rhythms. Through these shared experiences, their relationship evolved beyond partnership into something deeper, founded on mutual respect and shared purpose. Alexander found himself questioning his original motivations for coming to Orion, realizing that his journey had transformed from academic pursuit to personal mission. He began learning the subtle nuances of Luminari culture, not just as an observer, but as a participant, gradually earning the trust of Miranda's people to a degree unprecedented for an off-worlder. Their daily interactions became a blend of scientific discussion, cultural exchange, and personal connection, each conversation adding another thread to the complex tapestry of their relationship. Months later, as the last damaged areas recovered their former brilliance, Alexander found himself considering a permanent life on Orion. The scientific community back home clamored for his return, eager to publish his findings and capitalize on the prestige of his discoveries. Yet something deeper held him to this world of eternal light. Miranda introduced him to the deeper mysteries of Luminari culture, The way their light could be modulated to heal both physical wounds and emotional trauma, to communicate across vast distances instantaneously, to maintain the delicate balance of their ecosystem with precision that defied conventional physics. He learned to perceive the world through their senses, understanding how every pulse of light carried meaning, how every shadow told a story. Their union became a symbol of hope for harmonious coexistence between species, their relationship evolving into a partnership that bridged not just cultural divides but fundamentally different ways of experiencing reality. Alexander discovered that his human perspective brought valuable insights to luminary practices, while their ancient wisdom provided context and depth to his scientific understanding. Together, they developed new methodologies for studying and interacting with photonic energy systems, creating hybrid approaches that yielded results neither tradition could achieve alone. Their work attracted attention from across the galaxy, drawing researchers and diplomats who sought to learn from their example of successful interspecies collaboration. The legacy of their struggle extended far beyond Orion's borders, inspiring a wave of environmental consciousness that spread through the galaxy like ripples from a stone cast into still water. News of their success inspired similar movements on other planets facing corporate exploitation, leading to the formation of an interstellar coalition dedicated to protecting unique ecosystems and respecting indigenous rights. Scientists from across the galaxy arrived to study the auroral network, leading to breakthroughs in sustainable energy technologies that revolutionized space travel and resource management. Alexander and Miranda became ambassadors for a new approach to interstellar relations, one based on mutual benefit rather than resource extraction. They documented their journey in both written and light-encoded forms, ensuring their story would be remembered by both traditional and luminary historians. The Triple Suns continued their eternal dance, now watched over by guardians who understood their true significance. Their work laid the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation, where technological advancement went hand in hand with ecological awareness and cultural respect. Young researchers from diverse worlds came to study under their guidance, learning not just about Orion's unique properties, but about the importance of approaching other cultures with humility and openness. The couple's influence extended beyond scientific circles, affecting policy decisions at the highest levels of galactic governance and inspiring artistic movements that celebrated the beauty of interspecies harmony. As Alexander stood beside Miranda on the highest observation platform, watching the three suns paint the sky in ever-changing patterns of gold and crimson, he realized they'd achieved something truly remarkable. Not just the preservation of a unique ecosystem, but the forging of a new path forward for interspecies relationships that emphasized mutual growth over exploitation. Their story demonstrated that understanding and cooperation could overcome even the most daunting challenges when approached with genuine respect and shared purpose. The luminary's light burned brighter than ever, illuminating possibilities previously unimaginable and serving as a beacon of hope for other worlds facing similar threats. Through their journey, they had proven that technological advancement and ecological preservation weren't mutually exclusive goals, but complementary aspects of responsible development. The lessons learned from Orion's defense had applications far beyond its borders, influencing everything from agricultural practices on distant colonies to energy policies in major galactic centers. If you've enjoyed this tale of courage and unity across species, please consider subscribing for more stories about the infinite wonders waiting among the stars. Remember, sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't about finding new worlds, but learning to see familiar ones in completely new ways. By following this channel, you'll gain access to exclusive content exploring the frontiers of science fiction and the boundless possibilities of interspecies cooperation. Our next episode will delve deeper into the practical applications of light-based communication systems inspired by the luminary's natural abilities, featuring interviews with experts who are adapting these principles for use in human technology. Subscribe now to ensure you don't miss this fascinating exploration of how ancient wisdom can shape our future among the stars.